Amy Jade Winehouse was a well-established English singer and songwriter. She was known for her deep, expressive contralto vocals and her eclectic mix of musical genres, including soul, rhythm and blues, and jazz. Amy was born on September 14, 1983, in Southgate, North London, United Kingdom. Unfortunately, she lost a battle with drugs and alcohol and tragically passed away on July 23, 2011, in Camden, London. Autopsy reports confirmed this was the cause of her untimely death, which was heartbreaking for both the music industry and her fans worldwide. Her breakdown was evident in many of her performances and her interviews, and it is disheartening that there was nothing that could be done to stop her demise. Though she only lived to be 27, her story and music career was and still continues to be extremely influential to many artists and individuals today. Amy Winehouse was inspired by many artists that are reflected and heard in her own iconic style of jazz. At an early age, her father, Mitch Winehouse, introduced her to jazz music. She attended the Sylvia Young Theatre School, which exposed her to a greater amount of music than she would have had if she attended a regular, non-specialized school. She was reportedly expelled from the school for disobeying the school's dress code and insisting on wearing a nose ring. This shows that even from a young age, Amy had a spunky and deviant attitude.
One of Amy's favorite classic jazz artists was Frank Sinatra, whom she later named her first debut album after in 2003. She began playing the guitar at age 13 and soon after began writing her own music. Her primary musical influencers were Sarah Vaughan and Dinah Washington, two iconic American jazz singers from the 1950s. Amy's signature look included a beehive hairstyle and thick black eyeliner can be traced to her early interest in the Ronettes, the original bad girls of rock and roll. In 2007, she married Blake Fielder Civil, whom she later divorced in 2009. This rocky relationship was the peak of her alcohol and drug abuse, alongside several life-threatening habits. The couple's on-again, off-again relationship negatively impacted her performance, reputation, and overall health as she turned to alcohol and drugs to cope with the highs and lows. Her life experiences and emotions were the foundation for her musical content. As mentioned, Amy Winehouse passed away in 2011 from a drug-induced overdose. Throughout her successful music career, Amy was nominated for and won 6 Grammy Awards in various categories and a Brit Award for Best British Female Solo Artist in 2007 following the release of her second studio album, Back to Black. Amy Winehouse was a staple icon in the jazz community and continues to inspire and influence current artists. As we know, Amy Winehouse established her name and content in the jazz style of music. Jazz is a rather complex genre to master because it thrives on improvisation, evolution, and personal expression. For this reason, Amy's ability to express her vulnerability and raw emotion through the lyrics and music of her songs made her an extremely successful jazz artist. Amy wrote the song Back to Black with Mark Ronson in March of 2006. Ronson recalls meeting with Amy and formulating the initial verse chords of the song using a little piano riff. With her nylon string guitar, over the next few weeks they formulated the chords and verses, which were then layered with Amy's own written lyrics. Her music depicted the real-life drama and heartbreak she endured with her lover, Blake. In the song Back to Black, she sings about her inability to move forward and how she in many ways relapses back to what she knew and once had.
The song begins with a kick drum, piano, tambourine, and reverb effects that outline the background rhythm of the song. This very same rhythm is heard throughout the piece's entirety, excluding the bridge verse. Amy sings the melody through a series of repeated pitch rhythms with the use of different words that change from verse to verse. Once the sung verses come into play, the texture of the piece can be described as homophonic, meaning the main melody is accompanied by a chord-based instrumental background melody. Though she does not harmonize and layer her own voice in this song, the use of backup singers' chords emphasizes the context of the music and blends seamlessly with the background sounds. The tone color or timbre of the piece is displayed through the background beats and rhythms. In the bridge especially, the tone changes as the tempo drops and includes only the use of the tambourine and vocal cords to signify the spoken lyrics. This particular verse of the song, she doesn't use it to connect the chorus to a verse, but rather to separate the repeated chorus by slowing down the tempo and emphasizing the word black, which we later infer is the negative past state she falls victim to. The overall structure of the song has no definite pattern and follows an A, B, A, bridge, B form, where A represents the verses and B represents the choruses. The initial 4 verses are the same in melody, however, following the first chorus, the melody drops to a new motif is introduced. After analyzing the musical composition of the song Back to Black by Amy Winehouse, it is clear that she connects with the social aspect of relationships and human nature. The lyrics of this piece are clear and meaningful to her, though can be applied to any given situation surrounding a love and heartbreak.
Now we will look into her self-written lyrics of the piece and briefly analyze the content. The song focuses on how her then ex-boyfriend left her for his previous partner, and Amy is now facing the abyss of alcohol and drugs. This is depicted within the first few verses in the lines, "You went back to what you knew, so far removed from all that we went through, and I tread a troubled track, my odds are stacked, I'll go back to black." Upon entering the chorus, Amy expresses her inability to accept the reality of Blake leaving and how she falls victim to the recently ended relationship. She says, "We only said goodbye with words. I died 100 times. You go back to her, and I go back to black." She told Universal Island Records in an interview, she quoted, "She was very hurt and needed to make something good out of a bad situation." There was a lot of historical, cultural, and social circumstances that surrounded Back to Black's creation. Historically and culturally, this piece is so important in music because Amy revived jazz for so many people and was the person that introduced this genre to younger generations who had never been exposed to it before. Jazz music was very popular during the 1920s and 1930s and slowly began to lose popularity over the years. During the early 2000s, when this song was created, the radio was dominated with pop and rap singers. She was the only jazz artist at the time that truly made it into mainstream radio and media. She proved that jazz music can be young and relevant just as much as other genres. Socially, this song is so important because it highlights so many issues that people face today. Dealing with heartbreak is something that many people have to face throughout their lives, and oftentimes they do turn to a black or depressed state. This song resonates with so many people, and the relatability of it is what has helped make it so popular. Toxic relationships is also a very important social issue that this song deals with as well. Amy and Blake had one of the most toxic and volatile relationships that was widely reported in the press. They were both addicted to being with each other, even though they were not in a healthy relationship. Toxic relationships is a social issue that is so prominent today, and if there's something we can learn from Amy and Blake's tumultuous relationship, it is that even if you love someone, you have to let them go if they are harmful to your own personal well-being.
Through all of this darkness, there was something positive that came out of it. The Amy Winehouse Foundation was formed by Amy's family in 2011, and it officially launched on what would have been Amy's 28th birthday. This charity works to educate young people on the negative impacts that drugs and alcohol can have on their lives. The charity works to support people who have already fallen victim to these addictions and try to help them recover. The charity honors Amy's passion for music by supporting the personal development of disadvantaged young people through music. Music was such a therapeutic outlet for Amy, so it is great that this outlet can be shared with others who are struggling. A studio was created using funds from the charity, which gives talented, underprivileged youth the chance to practice their craft and create songs. This studio time is something that typically would be very expensive that many of these people would have never been able to afford without the help from this charity. The role of this piece in Amy's life was a song about self-expression, specifically her unstable relationship with Blake. When discussing the album's content with the Rolling Stone magazine, Amy said, "All the songs are about the state of my relationship at the time with Blake. I had never felt the way I feel about him, about anyone in my life. It was very cathartic because I felt terrible about the way we treated each other. I thought we'd never see each other again." He laughs about it now. He's like, "What do you mean you thought we'd never see each other again? We love each other. We've always loved each other. But I don't think it's funny. I wanted to die." This truly illustrates the raw emotion and heart that went into the writing of the songs on this album, specifically the song and record's title, Back to Black. In an interview with Sun newspaper, in her own words, "Back to Black is when you finish a relationship and you go back to what's comfortable for you. My ex went back to his girlfriend, and I went back to drinking and dark times." Because Amy wrote about such personal matters, she was able to gain a fan base that related to similar situations and the content that she put forth. In the context of music, this song had a deeper impact on the vulnerability of the audience and the artist herself. Following her untimely departure, the legacy of Amy Winehouse left a significant impact on her listeners and the jazz music industry as a whole.
In conclusion, the reason we selected this piece was because it is a prime portrayal of Amy's style of jazz. It includes both unreserved and unapologetic lyrics and a characteristic style of literature that Amy represented. Back to Black remains significant as the #1 most popular song of her releases, and it peaked at #8 in her native country in the following weeks of her passing. I myself have always admired the work that she brought forth and her non-traditional rise to fame. She was ruthless and bold. She admittedly shared with CNN, "From being around the block, I guess people know I don't really do what I'm told to, or that I don't really care enough about what people think of me to conform to anything." After deconstructing and evaluating the composition of this song, I have a more clear sense of her songwriting ability. She told a brief narrative and emphasized the holistic purpose of the song in the repeated chorus. When the piece slowed down, it was her symbolic life halt when she reiterated the blackness she was challenging.
After analyzing the lyrics and musical composition of the piece and the artist, we acknowledge the true talent that she embodied on stage and in the studio. Her legacy lives on in the hearts of so many in the music industry and so many fans across the globe. Lastly, in an unpublished interview with journalist John Mars, he asked her how she, Amy Winehouse, would like to be remembered, and here's what she said. "I'd like to be remembered as someone who wasn't satisfied with just one level of musicianship, as someone who was a pioneer, as genuine."